Kings County. I can say that just this past fall, I've had announced that our committee, screening panel, the largest Democratic committee in New York City and state, had expanded the judicial screening panel to include a more inclusive and diverse representation. We added multiple new seats for members representing diverse affinity legal groups, bar association, public defenders, and private practice firms in Brooklyn, a step in maximizing the inclusive and diverse legal community in Kings County. And I thank the executive committee for investing the time to increase transparency and to engage the public in this very important process of judicial selection so the bench reflects the community it serves. Tonight's forum, our first one in 2026 for this year's election cycle, is dedicated for candidates running for a judge for Civil Court, Kings County. I again want to thank our presenters, our ad hoc committee here tonight, who will be part of asking these questions and presenting our candidates to be considered for civil court seats. From legal experts to sitting judge in Brooklyn's housing court, we have a fine pool of Brooklyn attorneys we will consider and hear from tonight. I want to recognize once again all of you who are home sitting watching us and making this a priority. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And now I'd like to hand the floor to our chair of the ad hoc committee of the Brooklyn Democratic Party for our Judicial Committee, Michael Boomer. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It seemed like I was muted. I'm sorry, guys, but I would just like to thank you guys for showing up and being part of this process. We really do this for the community, so it could be a community-based decision. So please, I'm not going to hold you up any longer. I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Ms. Jackie Painter. District Leader Painter, have the floor.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. And yes, I will skip some of my remarks as well to get us on the road here. But as Chair Janice said, this is our first judicial forum of 2026, so in the snowstorm. So thank you all so much for being here. I'm Jackie Painter, District Leader for Assembly District 51 and the co-chair for the Brooklyn Dems Ad Hoc Judicial Committee. And I just want to send this over to Vlad real quick so he can introduce himself, my co-host of the evening.
Thank you so much, Jackie.
Thank you so much, Jackie. 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 So
I'm sorry, can anybody hear me? Okay. Thank you so much, Jackie. Good evening, everybody. I'm Vladimir Edward. I am a Brooklyn Young Democrat, judicial delegate, and county committee member. Thank you so much for being here today.
Awesome. We are going to just jump right in now. The candidates we have invited to be with us tonight are as follows, and I apologize right now if I mispronounce your name. Please be very clear when you introduce yourself and introduce your name the proper way. Again, I apologize. But we have Quincy Auger, Brian Chelcun, Celeste Felix, the Honorable Sergio Jimenez, Linda Locasio, Christine Ortiz, and Janice Purvis. So we are going to give each candidate 1 minute to introduce themselves. Then we will go into question and answer. How this forum is going to work is that on the question portion, each candidate will have 2 minutes unless otherwise specified for how long the question will be. We do have a timekeeper, so the timer will go off if you are over time limit. So we are going to start again. We're doing 1 minute introductions per candidate. So, Mr. Quincy, if you are on, you are or Miss Quincy, I'm so sorry. You are on, if you're here.
I'm here, and don't worry. Hi, everyone. My name is Quincy Auger. I'll just briefly give you a background about myself. I live in Clinton Hill. I live here with my family, my husband, our two daughters. One is 6, one is almost 4. I have lived in Brooklyn since I moved here for law school to go to Brooklyn Law to pursue public interest. I fell in love with Brooklyn. I haven't left. Part of the reason I came to Brooklyn was to be closer to my family while still having everything that this borough has to offer. I grew up in New Jersey. I should move along. I practiced as a public defender since 2013 for the Legal Aid Society. I originally was in Queens for about 7 years and then transferred over to Brooklyn in 2020. And I've been practicing in Brooklyn Legal Aid Society as a public defender since then. I am also a supervising attorney with Legal Aid Society in Brooklyn. That's probably what you need to know about that background. I'm pursuing a position as judge for a few reasons. The first is that I've been dedicated to public service for a very long time, and I believe that a judge is a continuation of that dedication to that type of work. Oh, okay. So I look forward to all your questions, and thank you. That minute goes very quick.
Thank you so much. I realize that I did not say who was after you. So we will then go on to Brian and then Celeste. So Brian, over to you. You can unmute yourself and you have 1 minute.
Thank you to the host for hosting us and allowing us to introduce ourselves, and for the to working to increase the transparency in this process. My name is Brian Chelcun. I live in Crown Heights in the 57th Assembly District. After graduating law school at NYU and clerking for judges in the Southern and Eastern districts, I also joined the Legal Aid Society and have devoted my entire legal career to public defense work. For the first 3 years, I represented people who were incarcerated at Rikers Island. I drove out to Rikers Island every day to represent them in parole violation proceedings, usually for small stuff like curfews or smoking marijuana. And I'm very thankful, proud to have participated in reform, and thankful to my assemblywoman in the 57th district for working to pass less is more parole law reform, which really shaped the legal landscape for people under community supervision in Brooklyn. For the last 8 years, I've been representing people in criminal court. Shout out to my colleagues and the judges who have been there all day in the snowstorm today, including at night. Brooklyn is the only borough in the city right now that has an open court right now. Criminal court arraignments is open, and I think that is not necessarily glamorous. Being a judge isn't always glamorous, but it's an indicative of how important the role is in Brooklyn, how big our community is, and the need for it, and also the dedication, because the reason that court is open is that so that Brooklynites are not in jail longer than they need to be. They have an opportunity to see a judge tonight. So,
and we have time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're moving on now to Celeste Felix. Celeste, if you can unmute yourself, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Celeste Felix, and I'm running for civil court judge here in Kings County. I have nearly 20 years of experience as an attorney, first starting off in family court as a litigator with the Administration for Children's Services, where I dealt with trials revolving around children who were abused and neglected. I became a court attorney for 3 amazing judges, and I've learned so much from them. I started as a court attorney in family court, also working on cases dealing with juvenile delinquency, which encompasses criminal law. I also worked in the civil court as a law clerk, dealing with small claims cases, consumer debt and credit card lawsuits, as well as infant compromise cases and no fault. Currently, my current position is as a principal law clerk for a Supreme Court justice in civil. And we deal with the gamut of cases. Anything you can think of in terms of bringing a lawsuit in court, that's what we deal with. So that includes labor law, wrongful death, vehicle traffic accidents, anything that you can think of, we deal with. I'm also a small claims arbitrator. So I deal with cases at night court. So if a litigant does not want to have their case heard by a judge, they can hear it with an arbitrator. And that is what
We
I
have
do. So
time.
I've listened to, thank you.
Thank you.
And I've taken testimony. And so I would love to answer more questions later.
Thank you so much. We are now going to move on to the next two people, just so you can get ready, are Sergio Jimenez and Linda Locasio. So Sergio, if you want to please unmute yourself, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chairwoman, Mr. Boomer, Ms. Painter, Mr. Edward, and everyone involved. I would like to thank you for being here on this ultra snowy Sunday. My name is Sergio Jimenez. I'm currently a sitting judge in Brooklyn Housing Court. As a way of background, I'm a Costa Rican-born immigrant who bounced around thanks to my father's work for a bunch of countries, and then either by accident or fate found myself in New York City, where I've lived in Brooklyn since I moved here in 2006. In that time, I've been a public interest attorney at both the Civil Legal Services Organization, providing tenant defense work, and then at Brooklyn Defender Services as director of the Civil Legal Services Program. Since 2018, so now 7.5 years, I've sat in Queens and Brooklyn as a housing court judge, and I look forward to having this discussion with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. Under time. Perfect timing. All right. Miss Linda, you are next.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you. My name is Linda Cascio. I'm a candidate for civil court countywide. I was born and raised and educated in Brooklyn. I'm a child of immigrants. I have been practicing for 27 years. I started out as an associate in a small firm. Then I joined the Administration for Children's Services, and I was a trial attorney. Then to have flexibility with my family, I became a solo practitioner for about 15 years. About 10 years ago, I joined the court system and became a court attorney to 3 Brooklyn elected judges, Genovese, Colon, and Montalbano. I currently serve as a court attorney referee with Judge Montalbano, which means I am still under the judge, but I have my own contested inventory of cases, conduct my own hearings, settle cases, of course, under the guise of the judge, and take evidence and testimony.
And we have time.
The big picture for me is what my platform as a judge can do, and one of those is to help those with mental illness. Thank you.
Thank you so much. To close us out now, our last two for the intros are Christine Ortiz and Janice Purvis. Christine, if you would please unmute and get ready.
And one more, Jackie, and Danielle Eaddy.
Okay, we have one more as well. So the last 3.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here and staying warm during the snowstorm. I am Christine Ortiz. I'm a born and raised New Yorker. I am the daughter of a Puerto Rican father and a Peruvian immigrant mother. I grew up in the city. I went to public high school. I went to college here, and then I went to CUNY Law. CUNY Law, as some of you might know, is motto is law in the service of human needs. And that's exactly why I went there, and that's exactly what my career has been. Commitment to public service and serving the community. After CUNY Law, I worked at a small law firm doing matrimonial law. I did a class action wage and theft case for 20 porters and supers in the Bronx who were having their wages stolen in federal court. And I did a little commercial litigation. After that, I went into the court system for the past decade. I've worked as a court attorney. With my justice, I have been in lower civil. I have been with her in criminal court for 2 years, and I see some of the attorneys who used to appear are here, also seeking this position. And for the past 5 years, we have been in Supreme Court civil term, in which I hear oral arguments on behalf of my justice. I draft decisions for her, and I help her with trial issues. And so I hope you will look to me for an endorsement to run civil court countywide. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up from the list is Janice Purvis. 1 minute.
Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to speak and to be here tonight at this important forum. My name is Janice Purvis. I am a dedicated career public servant. I've spent the past 21 years in the court system. The past 20, I've been in Kings County Supreme Court, where I've worked in the law department. I've worked my way up through the successive legal titles. I am currently quasi-judicial, which is half judge at this point. I carry myriad responsibilities and workloads that I juggle throughout the work week. One of the things that I do is I research and write decisions for various judges. I also conduct pre-trial discovery conferences in the various conference parts. That's 3 days a week. And I also work on uncontested divorces. This is under the Honorable Jeffrey Sunshine, who is the statewide coordinating judge for matrimonial matters. Another important thing that I do, and I think it's one of the most important things that I do, is work in the help center. So this is specifically for people who can't afford an attorney, say they've been sued and don't understand what's going on. They come into the courthouse, and it's my responsibility to figure out what's going on in their case, to provide them forms, to provide them resources to try to access services, including free legal services. And I'm glad to be here, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you so much. And the last person that we have for a 1-minute intro is Danielle Eaddy.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for meeting with me tonight, and it's a pleasure to see you. My name is Danielle Eaddy-Alleyne. I have been an attorney for 35 years. I have been practicing in criminal law primarily since for 31 years. I'm currently a bureau chief of a trial division in the Kings County District Attorney's Office. I started my career as a complex litigation and appeals associate at the law firm of Rosenberg and Estes, where I worked for 2.5 years. And I was in the district attorney's office for 12 years, where I left where I was a bureau chief. And then I started my own law firm where I did criminal defense work. I did some civil litigation work, some family court work. And then in 2017, I returned back to the district attorney's office, where I have been the chief of a trial division. It's a pleasure to meet you. And I should say I'm not currently running for an office, but I am interested in running for civil judgeship.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying that to all of our viewers. We appreciate it. Heading it over to Vlad to start our next set of questions. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you. So questions fall into 3 categories: reasons for running, experience, court operation, and diversity, as well as inclusion. Now let's get started. First round of question is pertaining to why are you running? So this first question goes to Quincy Auger, Celeste Felix, and Linda Locasio. Starting with Quincy. What do you believe makes you uniquely qualified to serve in this role?
Thank you. You guys are going to make me go first a lot, huh? What makes me uniquely qualified? So I believe that I have some very strong qualities to be a judge. I have been a litigator for 13 years now. I have handled a caseload that has averaged at least 70 cases at any given time. All of those are individual clients. I am in a courtroom all the time. I'm very familiar with the ins and outs of a courtroom, of research, of litigation, of the rules of evidence, of ethics, of professional responsibility. And I'm comfortable bringing that to the table. I have also been a supervisor at my organization for about 18 months now, which has given me a different handle on the managerial aspects of what I would be asked to do as a judge. So obviously a judge would need to run a courtroom, have administrative roles for that, be responsible for having a strong, responsible court clerk, for managing the staff, the schedule, the timekeeping. So I've developed those skills over past 18 months in this role, as well as honing them from my time of handling all those cases at any given time. I didn't get to say this in my intro, but I also wanted to take on this role at this time because I do think that there is an element of the political climate that has shown that there is a need for integrity and independence and trust in the judiciary, that this is a very important role, that this is something that matters to the people that live here, the people of Brooklyn. And I believe that I'm someone that can uphold those qualities to make sure that I'm doing the most that I can to help the most people in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Celeste, Felix, the same question.
Thank you for that question. So as I mentioned, I have just about 20 years in the court system. And throughout those 20 years, I've been in the courthouse. So I understand how a courtroom works. I've been in a unique position to have worked with 3 amazing jurists. So I've had the ability to learn from them and to see the type of judge I want to be because of them. And working in the courthouse and seeing other judges, I've also learned, you know, the type of judge I don't want to be, which I think is equally as important in terms of qualities for judges. And so from those 3 judges, I learned about temperament. I learned how to control and efficiently run a courtroom. I've learned how to write decisions, which I continue to do now. And I've written at this point I've drafted thousands of decisions. I've learned how to maneuver with you talking to different attorneys and you know, kind of meeting so many different personalities and how to do that. And so, you know, I've dealt with defense counsels, I've dealt with people on the prosecution side, and I've learned how to deal with those personalities, how to settle cases. I've been in positions as a small claims arbitrator, as well as a hearing officer. I've been in positions to make decisions myself. So I've been in that role, that quasi-judicial role already, where I've taken in evidence, where I've heard testimony, and I myself have had to write decisions and make them on the spot sometimes. So with those years, I know how the courtroom works in terms of the staffing, how, you know, how to work with not just the attorneys, but with the court officers who are very important to our part, with the clerks who are important to running the part. I know the system. And so, yes, I would say that I am uniquely qualified. I also bring a plethora of experience. I've done family work, I've done civil, I've done some criminal. So I bring that experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that answer. Linda Locasio, we're going to have you answer that same question.
Sure. Okay, so as I mentioned, I was a trial attorney in family court. As a solo practitioner, I practice in pretty much every one of the courts on both sides, the plaintiff side, the defendant side. In the course of being a court attorney and now a court attorney referee, with my 3 judges, I worked in trial parts, doing jury trials, bench trials, commercial litigation, mental hygiene, discovery, criminal arraignments, matrimonial, trusts and estates, and of course, in civil court, the people's court, consumer debt, small claims, landlord-tenant. So I have an amazing experience, and I've been very well trained by 3 amazing judges who were confident to allow me to step up and take a larger role in the proceedings, which then allowed me to graduate to the position of referee. As I mentioned, it's a quasi-judicial position where I do my own hearings. For me, that explains why I'm uniquely qualified. Why am I running? The big picture for me, when anyone comes before me as a court attorney, a referee, and hopefully as a judge, is to make sure everyone feels heard. Everyone comes in knowing what they want. They may not know what they need. So part of my job is to hear them and help them come to terms with that, and hopefully a resolution. What fuels me? My personal experiences, which we don't have time to get into, but also the stories I hear and the observations I've made. The greatest observation that I made, which I touched upon in my intro, is the lack of mental health resources in our courts. it is my goal and my mission and my passion to join the Judicial and Mental Task Force, if I should be blessed to ascend to the bench, so that I will be able to try to introduce mental health resources in all our courts. It affects all our courts. The ripple effect is tremendous.
And that's time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that answer. Now, the next question is for Brian Chelcun, Christina Ortiz, and Danielle Eaddy-Alleyne. What qualities do you have that would make you a good judge?
Should I start first? Sure.
Yes.
Sure. So I actually think, I mean, it sounds like this whole group is very qualified. I think one of the most important qualities of a judge is humility, of knowing that even if you're in charge of a courtroom and you're leading a courtroom and you set the tone of the courtroom, that doesn't mean you're the smartest person in the room. It doesn't mean you know the most about the case. It doesn't entitle you to respect or deference, and that humility is important. You know, I'm running for civil court judge. Most of my experience is in criminal court. Part of what inspired me to run is that there are many judges who get elected to civil court who are in criminal. I think 4 of the judges who were elected a year or 2 ago in Brooklyn are currently sitting in Brooklyn criminal court. And it's inspiring to watch. I think just as Celeste noted that there are benefits to observing judges and seeing the qualities that resonate with you and make you want to be a judge, but also things that maybe judges do that don't as much. I've had the opportunity to see some judges with very little criminal court background really thrive there, and do good work and learn a lot, because it's not easy, especially when you are in that position. And I think the qualities that make them succeed there are patience, humility, willingness to surround themselves with people who they listen to and respect and can learn from, to listen to the litigants, and not feel like they have to be the smartest person in the room or in control. You do need a base level of sort of, I think, intellect and hard work and research, but it's really more about setting the tone of the courtroom, allowing people to contribute, and understanding that you are not the king of that room or queen of that room. That to me is the most important quality. And then a lot of those other things, good temperament, respect for other parties, the ability to let the litigants be heard and feel heard, all of that flows from the tone that the judge is setting.
And that's time.
Thank you.
Thank you for that answer. The next person to answer the questions, Christina Ortiz.
I definitely agree that humility is important. I also agree that I think empathy is super important in the job that we get to do every day as a court attorney. I get to engage with litigants and people who access the court every day. And empathy to the circumstance that they're there. As was said by previous people, we all have the same qualities and abilities. I've sat at counsel table, I've sat with the justice, I've analyzed the law from a neutral perspective. But what makes me different is that I see every person as the individual that they are, because not always were my parents or grandparents seen as people who had that individuality, access through language or ability to access the courts. So I think a lot rides in being able to be empathetic to why they're coming here and why they're accessing. Even though we're all seeking civil court, as was said, if you are elected to civil court, you could be placed in family court or criminal court. And that empathy goes a long way for all those circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that answer. The next person up, Danielle Eaddy-Alleyne, if you could answer the same question.
Thank you. I think what sets me apart is simply the breadth of my experience. I have personally tried over 70 felony cases, ranging from homicide cases all the way down to complex narcotics cases. I have administrative experience. I've been a manager since 1999, a manager of ADAs. In my capacity as now the head of a trial bureau for the last 9 years, and I have also been the second in command of a trial bureau before I started my own practice for several years. I determine the cases that get tried in my bureau across 4 precincts in this county. And being a trial attorney, you learn evidentiary rules. I am a writer. I wrote onto my law journal in school. Again, I was in appellate litigation, and I'm constantly learning because I must be up to date. And I've also been the chair of the 18B criminal court panel and determine who is fit to serve as a criminal attorney for the indigent in this city. On the civil side, I have done real estate cases. I have done, because 12 years I was on my own, 11 years I was on my own. I did a lot of 1983 cases. I did a little bit of PI work. I was in family court. So on the professional level, just the breadth of my experience, I think, sets me apart. On a personal level, I've had the opportunity to appear before so many judges. I've had the opportunity to look and see who I want to be. And humility is great. And you also have to
I think there's some technical difficulties here with Danielle Eaddy-Alleyne. All right, should I continue with the next line of questioning? Instead of just waiting for her to come back?
We can go on to the next line of questions, and if and when she comes back, we can allow her to supplement her answer.
No problem. So the next lines of question is for Sergio Jimenez and Janice Purvis. What do you see as the power of the robe?
Thank you. The power of the robe. I haven't really seen. I don't necessarily think of it as a power. It's a service that's being provided to all the litigants. As a sitting housing court judge, I know that everyone that comes before me, all the litigants that come before me, they're having a terrible day. And I suppose to address the question, the power is the ability or the desire to make everyone feel heard. When two parties are before me, they may ask me to make a decision, and I like to say that 100% of the time, 50% of the people are disappointed with the decision. But even if they are disappointed with what ultimately is decided, that they were heard, that I took the time and considered the arguments that have been heard. So with regard to the power, it's a platform in which the individual that's being that is up there can provide guidance to the parties looking to resolve whatever issue has arisen before them. Thank you.
Thank you for that answer. Janice Purvis, same question.
Yes, I echo those same sentiments. I have, over 10 years of experience working in the help center. So I am constantly speaking with people who can't afford an attorney, and they've come in, whether they've brought their own lawsuit or they've been sued, and they are terrified or angry. They don't understand what's going on. I think that is one of the powers of the robe, is to set the tone in the courtroom, to make sure every litigant understands what's going on, and that they are actually heard. And again, whether there's a ruling that is against them and they don't like the result, that's one thing, but at least they know they've been given a fair shot. I also think that my experience working with dozens and dozens of judges has helped shape my framework and how I approach each case individually to ensure that everybody feels that they've been heard.
Thank you so much for that answer. I will now transition the next line of questions over to my colleague, Jackie.
Thank you. A quick note before we continue that I forgot to say at the beginning when I rushed through everything. These questions have been divided randomly to each candidate. So we got a lot of question submissions. We have a huge question bank. And unfortunately, we don't have time to ask all the questions and all the candidates all the questions. So thank you again so much to everyone who submitted a question when they signed up for the Zoom ahead of time. And this method of randomization has been done to get the most out of our time here together. So moving on to experience questions. First up, we are starting again with Janice Purvis and Celeste Felix. Describe the breadth of your experience with different case types heard in civil and Supreme Court, and how that experience prepares you to decide matters fairly and impartially. Yeah, Janice, go ahead.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you. So, as I said before, I have 20 years of experience in Kings County Supreme as part of the law department. So I have been assigned cases where I research and write decisions, and it's anything from, personal injury, medical malpractice, breach of contract, it's motor vehicle cases. I mean, it really runs the gamut. I'd say first and foremost, I have developed the ability to be quick, to be thorough, and being assigned all those various cases for the various judges has really helped me on this journey.
Thank you so much. Celeste?
Yes, thank you for that question. Similar to Janice, after being in the courtroom for almost 20 years and having worked with different judges in different areas of the law, and specifically now, the cases that I work on also run the gamut. So I am also working on labor law, areas that I've never thought that I would work on. And now I really love personal injury cases. I'm coming from family court and lower civil court. So working on these cases were new for me. And now these are things that I can say that I have experience in. I have experience writing decisions on them, conferencing with attorneys about these issues. So I bring the breadth of experience that I bring is 20 years of conferencing cases, 20 years of settling cases. I've been, I think, pretty successful in settling matters, whether it was in family court or civil court. And so, again, working with the judges that I worked with, I think we as court attorneys and law clerks are in such a unique position because we work hand in hand with judges and we get to learn different things from them, learn what it is to be a judge, learn how to think like a judge, how to write like a judge. And, as someone said before, all of us on this panel today we really bring that experience, and we will bring that experience to the courtroom. One judge that I learned from really is very cool and calm. No matter what's going on in the courtroom, he handles the cases, just very calmly. That's something that I'm taking from that judge. Another judge that I worked with, she writes the most amazing decisions. I mean, thorough, just impeccable. And I learned from her how to, correctly write a decision, how to give the reader of the decision the understanding of what is actually being decided. And then the final judge I worked with was just compassionate, and that taught me compassion. And so, yes, so I bring that breadth of experience.
Thank you both. The next question we have is for Danielle Eaddy-Alleyne, Linda Locascio, and Christine Ortiz. We are going to start with Danielle. It seems like we were disconnected from you in the last question. So if you have any final thoughts from the last question to add within 20 seconds, and then you can answer this question. The next question for all three of you is, what do you consider your greatest professional accomplishment in your entire life?
Okay. Well, to just finish off what I was saying, in addition, having been around many judges and observed their demeanor, that is something that has stuck with me. And I know that if I go to the bench, I want to be very measured and I want to be very fair. And it's something that's very important to me. My greatest accomplishment, I would say, are all of the people that I have taught and how to try cases, how to be good people, how to do what's just, and how to do what's fair. Especially as a prosecutor, you're in a very great position. Like one of the most important places is being in the grand jury and deciding what's right and what's wrong. We work for a great, DA who is very progressive, and it gives us an opportunity to do what's right. So my greatest accomplishment for me has been teaching new people how to not only try cases, but even if you may have a great cases, but to do what's right and just.
Thank you so much. I believe next on the list, yes, Linda Locasio, go ahead.
Thank you. So we've already discussed my experience, and I think one of the greatest professional accomplishments for me has been my ability to identify what's really happening before me. It's not necessarily the case, the relief requested, the people came here thinking that they are suing someone for some reason, but what really the underlying issue is. And so I perceive that now as a gift because it really helps me to help the people before us, which in my current position is mostly pro se litigants, like it will be in civil court and also family court, should I be put there, and criminal court. So I think that's a gift that comes with great experience. And also working in Brooklyn all these years, it's high volume. So it's a gift and an accomplishment to get all that done, notwithstanding the volume. And the one other thing is, in the course of my practicing with my judge, I have been in 24 hours notice OCA gives you before they drop you into a part. And so my ability to be able to move and maneuver. And lastly, having been exposed to the mental hygiene and guardianship part has now allowed me to be able to review my cases differently in that light.
Thank you so much. Moving on to Christine.
Thank you for the question. I think it's a difficult one to answer. To sum up a legal career in one instance, I will say I've had a lot of experience with clients. I remember in my clinic in law school, I had my client, I vacated all of her convictions for prostitution because she was trafficked here in the United States for 10 years from Mexico. I think the other thing that's been really great in my career is being able to help people and being able to, me and my justice have very different backgrounds. She's an Orthodox Syrian woman, Jewish woman, and I am a Latina Catholic, both immigrant children. And we have different backgrounds and we exist in the city differently. And it comes into play when she's making decisions. And I've been able to affect decisions that she's made for the better of the community that we were experiencing in criminal court, in civil court. And I think it's important to listen and understand. And so I think the ability to understand that this job as a court attorney, as a referee, as an attorney is a privilege. And the fact that we're able to change the whole trajectory of someone's life is the greatest accomplishment that you could have. And as a judge, you have an even greater power to change someone's life completely from one day to the next, from one sentence or one court decision. And so already I have a great privilege in what I do. And I think that's been my greatest accomplishment, is making sure that I use that privilege to help and to make sure that people are being heard. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we are going to go over to Sergio Jimenez, who is actually the only sitting judge. So you are currently a sitting judge. What areas of law did you practice as an attorney before taking the bench?
Thank you. Okay. I have been a sitting judge since 2018. Prior to that, I worked at Brooklyn Defender Services, where I created the Civil Justice Practice Division, which was a bottleneck idea. The government would bring BDS clients either through its immigration work, its family Article 10 work, or its criminal division. And my idea, because I'm kind of a systems person, was to address those clients' needs in whatever case they needed, whether it be landlord tenant, so housing, public benefits, medical insurance, education, whatever the need was. I was trying to get to the root cause. So I've done administrative work, Article 78, been in Supreme Court and criminal court and family court, arguing for modifications of orders of protection, for instance. So prior to my being on the bench, I litigated all sorts of cases in the civil sphere and within the criminal sphere and the family sphere, to the end of fixing whatever problem our client had at the time, in order to get to the root cause and figure out how to best help them. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, now to switch it up for the next two questions. I said earlier that each question would be 2 minutes each. This question actually was submitted, these next two questions were submitted multiple times, so we are going to ask all of the candidates these questions. You each have 1 minute to answer. We are already over time, so please think about your answer while the other person is speaking. And they're very easy questions. They're just list off the answer. So the first question is, please describe any pro bono or public service work you have done. You can just list it out. We are going to go in the same order that we went when you introduced yourself. So Quincy, Auger, you are first, and then Brian, and then Celeste, and then Sergio, Linda, Christine, Janice, Danielle. So Quincy, over to you.
My entire career has been providing free legal services to people who need it, who have been arrested and accused of criminal offenses. So every single day, that is what I do. That is the entirety of my career, really, is doing pro bono work. I have also, just to give a little extra background, I did some work in college doing family law pro bono work, similar type of thing. And I also did pro bono work for habeas corpus work when I was in law school.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Brian?
Like Quincy, my entire legal career has been providing indigent legal services. I'm currently in a role where I provide employment consequence advice to colleagues if a client has been discriminated against either because of an open case in criminal court or because of their criminal record. We work to ensure that they are getting back to work. These are community members like home health aides, taxi drivers, MTA bus drivers who may get suspended. And the legal aid model is that we, use the leverage of litigation to get compensation and to get our clients back to work, but we don't take money for that. And frankly, we're underpaid. Public defenders, public interest attorneys in Brooklyn are underpaid. And I do think it's really important. And I think most judges know it. And I think it's really important that judges, whether it's a pro se litigant, a public defender, the fanciest private defense attorney, that everyone is treated fairly. I do think it's really important that judges understand the constraints that different attorneys and different litigants are working under, whether they're going pro se and don't have that knowledge, or whether they're a public defender with 100 cases on their docket, and that the judges accept that this is the system that we've created, but that they need to make sure that everyone within that system, whether you're a paid attorney or doing pro bono work, is able to do their job effectively.
Thank you. And moving on to Celeste Felix.
Thank you for that question. So for the last 17 years, I've worked in the court system, worked with judges, and prior to that, I was a litigating attorney with the Administration for Children's Services. So I'm very proud to say that my entire career has been in public service and serving the people of Brooklyn. And so I hope to continue that as a judge. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next is Mr. Jimenez.
Thank you. Much like everyone else that's spoken, I've only done civil legal services, and now I've joined the court system, so I've never been in the private practice. I do teach at Fordham Law School now, so that is not pro bono. I do get paid for that. But aside from that, my entire career has been either providing indigent legal services or now in the court system. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda?
Hi, I think we're okay with the mute. Okay. So as many have mentioned, we're quite limited as court employees, court attorneys to do pro bono work. One thing that I have been able to do is present continuing legal education courses. And I have done that in the past few years with respect to guardianship, that is guardian for incapacitated persons or for special needs individual, something I hold close to my heart. In that respect, we also reach out to the community and are trying to assist people who are self-represented apply for guardianship. So I've been doing education courses. With respect to prior to joining the system, I was a court appointee. In that regard, I was asked to do pro bono quite often in guardianship proceedings and other court proceedings where you would provide legal services and then not charge the person, whoever you were assisting, and protecting their rights and interests for a fee. In addition, I ran what's called a Safer Spaces program, safe environment program for my local parish. The idea was to train everyone to prevent child abuse and neglect. That was, you may remember, in response to what was going on with the church, they developed this program and I ran the whole program for my local parish.
And that's time.
Thank you. Next is Christine Ortiz.
Hi. So as everyone said, as a public servant, I do public interest every day when someone enters the courtroom. In addition to everything we do, there are times when there are no interpretation services available, and I have, with consent of everyone, jumped in to interpret the case for a litigant or a party, since I am bilingual in Spanish. Prior to my time in the court system, I, have my own clients. I did Know Your Rights workshops in Queens about immigration, about employment in English and Spanish. I've worked the Ve y Vota hotline through Latino Justice Pearl Deaf, which is basically during elections, people call in when they're being disenfranchised at their poll site, and we give them information and we hook them up with an attorney. And usually we do that on primary day and election day because of all the disenfranchisement that can occur. And also one thing I forgot to mention is that I still sit as a small claims arbitrator at night. In addition to my job during the day, I sit in small claims and I help arbitrate issues for usually pro se litigants.
Thank you. And the next person will be Janice Purvis, followed by Danielle Eaddy-Alleyne.
Yes. Yeah, I also consider myself a, dedicated career public servant with over 10 years in the help center dealing with pro bono litigants. I've also served as a supervising attorney in the VLP, the Volunteer Lawyers Project. So this is assisting litigants who want to complete their uncontested divorces. So we would have, pro bono attorneys. They were there to fulfill their, their legal requirements of pro bono services. And so I acted as a supervisor and helped them instruct these pro se litigants, or if they had any questions, not only train them, but answer any questions and further help with them to assist self-represented litigants.
Thank you. Danielle?
Right, like everyone else, I have a life committed to public service, 21 years as a district attorney, where the opportunity presents. I volunteer on the weekends and nights where I can. And I also belong to a sorority that is public service oriented. And I've been the president of another mother's organization where we do multiple community service programs, everything from voter education to food insecurity. So I consider myself a public servant, and I have dedicated a large part of the time outside of my work to community service.
Thank you so much. So the next question, like I said before, was submitted multiple times. So we are going to ask each candidate this question. We're going to go in the same order, and it is 1 minute. It should be another very straightforward question. So the question is, list your legal professional memberships, including any bar associations and any relevant affiliations with groups, organizations, community, etc. We are going to start with Quincy.
My answer will be short. I'm coming to this fairly untethered. I am not very well tied to any big organization or any affiliation. I do belong to the Kings County Bar Association and the Kings County Criminal Bar Association and the Brooklyn Bar Association. And then for community groups, that's really it for my professional ties. And then for my community ties, they're largely tied to my children. I am a member of the PTA and I try to be as involved as I can at PS20, which is where they go to school. And I'm very proud to coach soccer for ASOS. If anyone has little kids, you probably know, in Brooklyn.
Thank you so much. Brian?
I am also a member of the Kings County Criminal Bar Association, the Brooklyn Bar Association. I am on the New York City Bar Criminal Court Subcommittee, the LGBT bar in the city of New York. And then I would not if I became a judge, but I have been fairly active in a group called the Five Borough Defenders, which is a ad hoc group of public defenders across the city, who largely for the last 5 years or so have been focused on bail reform and ensuring that bail reform is being implemented and that judges are following it and that judges are educated about how they should be taking in the new bail guidelines.
Thank you. Celeste?
Yes, so I am a member of the Brooklyn Women's Bar Association, the Brooklyn Bar Association. And then in terms of my community work, I've mentored for the Girls Rule the Law Inc. It's a not-for-profit organization that really empowers young ladies and gives them a pipeline to the legal field. I grew up not having any lawyers in my family or friends as lawyers. And, I had to kind of learn the legal system and, through high school and college and ask those questions and sort of learn on my own. And this organization helps to give young women in middle school and high school the opportunity to kind of bond and be mentored by legal professionals so they can say that they've spoken to attorneys in their youth and that they know someone they can call should anything happen to them. In terms of some volunteer work, I've also mentored at my daughter's school for her moot court, her law review and moot court organizations and clubs. I've been a judge in some of those moot court programs. And I've also been the treasurer at my daughter's dojo. It's a not-for-profit organization also, and I do the treasury work for them as well. And I've been doing that since she was, about 8 years now. And so anything youth, I'd love to be a part of. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh, he's already on the screen. Sergio?
Thank you. The professional associations and memberships that I have, the Housing Court Judges Association, the Latino Judges Association, the National Hispanic Bar Association. I was a member of the House for the New York State Bar Association, as well as the former chair of the Legal Aid Committee of the Legal Aid Committee for New York State Bar Association. I'm a member of the Bay Ridge Lawyers Association. I'm very proud to be one of the co-chairs of the OCA's Advisory Committee on people with disabilities. That's an issue that is very near and dear to my heart. Professionally, I'm also tied to Fordham University, where I teach a course on housing law. I help write the treatise on landlord-tenant law every year, Professor Shearer's treatise. And just the one last one, I won the New York City Bar Association, the 2018 Legal Services Award. So I also have a soft spot for the New York City Bar Association in that sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda, moving to you.
So I am pleased to say that I was appointed by the Administrative Judge Zayas to the Surrogates Court Advisory Committee. That is a committee where we make recommendations and propose legislation to simplify procedure and practice in the Surrogates Court, which is largely used by unrepresented individuals taking care of their deceased family members' affairs. I have also done mock trials with grammar school children and court tours with them to kind of open them up to all the opportunities that they could avail themselves and have some exposure, not just lawyers, but anything that they may want to be able to do. And I also do fundraising for On Your Mark. I'm no longer able to do that in the past year due to my referee position, but previously, for many years there before, I did fundraising for On Your Mark, which is an organization for the intellectually and developmentally disabled. I'm very passionate about that cause. As for bar associations, if I may read, because I'm a member of quite many, because as a solo practitioner, I benefited from those connections. And so now I use the attendance at those programs to mentor and
We
pay
have
it
time.
forward to others. Okay, I'm a past president of the Columbian Lawyers and a member of all the Brooklyn Bar Associations. They are. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine, over to you.
Hi, I am a member of the Puerto Rican Bar Association. I was the recording secretary for a term. I am a member of the Brooklyn Bar Association. I sit on the diversity committee for the past, I believe, 3 years now. I'm a member of the New York State Trial Academy of Lawyers, New York State Trial Lawyers Academy. In terms of public service, I also am in a sorority called Latinas Promoviendo Comunidad, Lambda Pi Chi Sorority Incorporated, which translates to Latinas Promoting the Community. So I do a lot of community service with my sorority since college. Additionally, I was one of the first founding members of Y Tú También College Access Program, which a bunch of us who were fortunate enough to get into Ivy League schools, Latinos at first, we all got together and started helping New York City high school minority and first-gen students apply to our Ivy League schools, and we've opened it up to any school. So I've reviewed college applications for UCLA, for Stanford, for CUNY, and we just hold seminars for them to come and hear from other first-gen. We also help the parents fill out FAFSA applications.
That's time.
So that they can also have access. Thank you, like we did.
Thank you. Janice, go ahead.
Yes, I would say I'm extremely proud and honored to be serving as the executive vice president of my union, which is the Court Attorneys Association of the City of New York. I am a member of the Brooklyn Bar Association, the Brooklyn Women's Bar Association, Columbian Lawyers Association of Brooklyn, the Small Claims Arbitration Association, and the Women's Bar Association of the State of New York. In terms of community involvement, I reside in Crown Heights. I'm very active in the community. I was previously on the board of Friends of Brower Park, which is the nearby park close to me. I am vice president of my block association. I frequently attend community and police precinct meetings in the neighborhood. And last but not least, I am also on the board of a 501c3 nonprofit dealing with cat rescue, and that is Bushwick Street Cats.
Oh, thank you. Danielle, next, over to you.
Yeah, I just got a cat. I love that. I am a proud member of the Kings County Criminal Bar Association and have been. I was a 2018 award winner, one of the highest awards you can get for an attorney. In that capacity, I have been a secretary of the Kings County Criminal Bar Association. They also chose me to sit as the chair of the 18B selection committee to determine those that would represent as private attorneys indigent people in Brooklyn. When I had my own practice, I was the vice president of the New York State Association of Criminal Defense Attorneys. In my personal capacity, I'm the immediate past president of the Brooklyn chapter of Jack and Jill of America, for which I've been the president for 4 years. I have been for several years the legal advisor to my sorority. I've been the past president of a group called The Masters, and I am currently also the secretary of my block association. So I am very active, and almost always I have been the class parent or served in some kind of capacity on the PTA of my daughter's schools. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. We are going to now go into another round of individual questions submitted by the community that are a little longer, and we will go back into the 2-minute timer, and I'm going to hand it over to Vlad to continue from here.
Yes, thank you all for those answers. We have some great candidates running, I gotta say. Next up, we're gonna have a few questions having to do with court operations. Let's start with Sergio Jimenez, Linda Locasio, and then Danielle Eaddy-Alleyne. The question is, what steps would you take to improve courtroom efficiency? Sergio?
That's what I do every single day. I'm a systems person, like I said before. I very much enjoy trying to find ways of taking up less of people's times when they come before me, so that I can focus on the cases that require more attention. I have to balance the cases that can get to resolution with the cases that are more intensive. And so I've been able to, working with my court attorney, delegate things to her that she's able to take off my plate while keeping things that only a judge can do. I wish I had the ability to share some of my systems with you, because I'm very proud of them. I'm all in with regard to digitizing a lot of the court, and for housing court at least, it's been a problem for the past X number of years in trying to move to a digital framework. It only happened since 2020. We were one of the first courts to go back and be open after the pandemic in person. And so we had to develop systems sort of on the fly. I'm proud to say that I'm up to date with every single one of my decisions. I didn't have to report anything for being outstanding for more than the 30, 60, 90-day reports. So I think that speaks to my ability to use systems in a different way, so that no one is waiting for something from me. Most of the time, I'm able to get decisions out within a few weeks at most, but the turnaround in my part is something that I'm very, very proud of. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that answer. Linda Locasio, same question.
Well, as the court attorney in Brooklyn, particularly, you don't have a choice but to be efficient. There is a tremendous volume of cases right now in surrogates court as a result of the pandemic. We're constantly identifying, and I'd like to say that I'm a great part of this, and I make recommendations to the judge in identifying, creating, implementing, and adjusting ways to make our proceedings more efficient. In addition, I worked in the Kings County discovery part in Supreme Court during the pandemic, and we had an inventory of 425 cases a day. And as most of us may recall, during that time, we did not have clerks because they were not working at the time. So one of the things we needed to do was identify, maneuver, and create ways to move the cases, because people needed to get paid, and pro se litigants as well as attorneys and their clients needed their cases to be heard. And so I learned how to be a clerk, and that actually helped me and motivated me to create a better system virtually in the Kings County Supreme Court, which is still used to this day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Danielle, Eaddy-Alleyne, same
Yes,
question.
thank you. I think it's very important for a judge to, from the very first time they have a case, to find out what the litigants are each looking for, what both sides are looking for. I think that too often cases go on and they drag on, and it's months later when someone finally says, what are they looking for? When maybe it could have been resolved from the beginning, even if it wasn't in the person's favor, so that both sides know up front what each person is willing to give. And it's particularly important because of the amount of discovery that is required nowadays. If you can cut down the amount of discovery that the litigants have to not only turn over, but defense attorneys have to review all of that discovery, they can be more efficient. So I think it's important for a judge to get the parties to talk up front to see what can be resolved. I think that's the first thing. And I think it's also important for a judge to be very clear what they expect on the next date and hold people to that, because a lot of court dates are wasted when nothing gets done. It's really a wasted court date. So I think if the judge is very clear about their expectations, this is what I expect the parties to do on the next date, unless there's a good reason not to, so that we can move the cases along. I think when that happens, when there's nowhere else to go, like it could be a plea, it could be, a settlement or a trial. It's only a lot of times when it gets to whether there's going to be a settlement or a trial when people get serious. And I think that if a court can bring the parties together to resolve that sooner, the courtroom would work much more efficiently.
Thank you. For the next question, we will have Quincy Auger, Christina Ortiz, and then Janice Purvis answer. What do you perceive as the greatest obstacles to justice currently facing our court system? Quincy Auger.
A lot of things jump to mind. All of my clients, I meet them when they are incarcerated. There is a heavy focus on bail, but I know we're talking about civil issues here. So beyond that, I do think that a lack of empathy is often coming into play in the judiciary. Unfortunately, there is sometimes too much bureaucracy, that things need to happen at a certain time in a certain way without a real understanding of what the parties are doing, of what the litigants are doing, of where negotiations are, of what steps need to be taken, and understanding that a lot of litigants are working with real people who also have time constraints, who have other responsibilities, who need to do things, and can't necessarily just meet the judge's schedule. It's unrealistic. So that lack of empathy. I also think that there is occasionally a concern of mine that sometimes the only people who are expected to really follow the rules are the people who are being brought before court. And that is a problem for achieving any kind of justice. Everyone needs to be accountable. There are rules for the lawyers, there are rules for the judges, there are rules for the litigants, there are rules for the people who have ended up before the court. And those are important, and they should be valued at all the stages and with all the parties who are in the system. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Christina Ortiz, same question.
Yes, I think the biggest issues facing the court system are access and efficiency. I think the bureaucracy, but I think the website could be more accessible to people. There could be more information for whatever court you're looking at. You can't even find phone numbers for the offices you need to call for access. There are so many forms that we could put up. We have forms, in our part rules, we have forms that we've created, like infant comps, and we're like, hey, use our sample form. Here it is, or use it for another part. I think there needs to be more transparency, a lot more access to information so that people can access the court and can check things. You can check online how your court's proceeding, but to use e-courts and NICEF is difficult for people, but it's there. And I think we need to do a lot more about that. And then I think the other part is efficiency. When the justice was in criminal court during the pandemic, 30/30 was speedy trial time was halted due to the pandemic, and they gave us 7,000 cases assigned to legal aid, in which we were tasked with using our civil court experience of having large dockets and conferencing those 7,000 cases. And I can tell you that I was emailing and setting up conferences with the legal aid attorneys, weekends, nights, just to get as many of these 7,000 cases settled or, to some kind of degree, and sending them ahead of time to the DA and saying, hey, here's all the cases that this attorney has. Give me an offer on everyone. Or if you can't, tell me why and exchange it, so that when we are in front of the court and the client is there, we can have a real discussion instead of at the last minute. And we were taking pleas. People were on the subway on their phones. People were at work on their break. And we managed to get those 7,000 cases down to, I think, 1,200 by the time we left criminal court, and the speedy trial time started again. So I think efficiency and access.
Thank you, Christine. Janice, same question.
I would say equal access to justice. My experience in the help center has taught me that I'm limited in that respect. I can't give legal advice. And that can be very frustrating at times. I think that the courthouse needs way more resources, not just for the help center, but legal resources to help these self-represented clients. I think that each judge has incredibly heavy caseloads. I know in the discovery parts under Honorable Judge Gottlieb, we deal with hundreds of cases in a morning. It's such heavy caseloads, and I think it's very difficult to prioritize tasks, to also make the individuals, the litigants and pro se litigants that appear before us, feel that they've been heard and that their case is just as important as the next. And that's what we do in the part. But I think that is a significant challenge for judges now.
Thank you so much. For the last question in this section, we will have Brian Chelcun and Celeste Felix answer the question. What qualities and experience would you look for in a law clerk? We'll start with Brian first.
Sure. I think this is related to the answer I gave earlier. I think a judge is only as good as the relationships, and I think maybe one of the current law clerks mentioned this earlier, is only good as the relationships that they create with the court officers, the attorneys, the other people that they're working with. I think if I were to be serving in civil court, I would definitely want a court clerk and court attorney and staff who was more versed in the subject area, just as I've been proud to see elected civil court judges in Brooklyn who are being placed in criminal court reach out to the defense bar, the public defender bar, for help in finding support in these new roles for them. I have seen court attorneys for judges in Brooklyn Criminal and Supreme, and judges who have intentionally sought someone from a different perspective. So if someone was a prosecutor looking for a defense attorney, or vice versa, having someone that can bring a different perspective or complement the strength that you might have as a judge with their own strengths, and that involves a judge being aware of their own potential weaknesses or their own spots that they might need additional assistance from their staff. And then court staff, court clerk, court attorneys who are willing to speak up, to tell me when I'm doing something wrong, to tell me when they disagree with me, to provide ideas or advice on how to be more efficient and how to address certain issues that need to be addressed. That it sounds like a lot of the law clerks on this panel have had really great experiences with their judges, and that's fantastic. I've seen, you can tell when you're in court if a judge does not have a good relationship with the people that are working with them, and it affects everything. It affects every part of the court. It affects every player in that court, and it affects it negatively. It diminishes the efficiency. It diminishes the sense that the litigants feel when they leave that courtroom. And so just creating the environment and having the temperament to make those decisions and support your staff.
Thank you. Celeste, Felix, same question.
Yes, thank you for that question. That's actually a really good question because a few of us on here are law clerks. And so I think we are in great positions to know exactly the type of person that we would want working with us when we become judges. The role of a law clerk is so important, as I think we all can testify to. You are the right hand of the judge. You are in sometimes a decision-making position, even though the judge is there. Sometimes you have your own caseload, so you have to be a quick thinker. You have to be motivated. And so I would want a law clerk, with similar strengths that I have. I think quick on my feet. I learned how to deal with different personalities. They're going to have to learn to deal with, anger, right? They're going to have to learn, and that's from both the attorneys and the litigants. Attorneys are angry too, and they sometimes display that in court. So I would want someone whose temperament can deal with any type of personality that they meet in court. Sometimes the law clerk is the first person that you are greeted by when you enter a courtroom, and that's both for attorneys and litigants. So I want them to feel comfortable when they walk into the courtroom. And if that's the first person that they are going to see and speak to, I need them to be respectful. I need them to be kind. But I also need them to be knowledgeable. So I want someone who wants to learn, who wants to get that experience. Sometimes you hire a law clerk that has never done that specific area of law, and that doesn't bother me, because if there's a willingness to learn and there's a passion to learn the law, that is what I would be looking for. Just an overall friendly demeanor. And yeah, so I think we are all in those positions to really pick someone that kind of melds and gels with us as judges. And so very similar to what Brian said. Yes, so thank you.
Thank you so much. I will now be passing this back on to Jackie Painter.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for sticking around. We do have one more question per candidate, I believe, or it might be two in one case. We are going to try to get through these last four questions as quick as possible. But the thing is that these questions are very good. And these were great questions asked. As you may or may not know, each question has to be go through a specific legality test to make sure that it's a question that we can ask, so that they can't talk about specific cases that they've worked on or anything like that. And then I do see that there are a lot of questions in the Q&A portion of this chat, and I want to thank everyone for sending these questions. We are taking note of all of these questions, but unfortunately, we already are 20 minutes past time, and it doesn't look like we're going to get to them. So let's cross our fingers and hope to end by 8:10, 8:15 latest. Let's hope for 8:10. And the next section that we're moving into are questions about diversity and inclusion. So starting with Sergio Jimenez and then Christine Ortiz, how have you fostered diversity and inclusion in past professional settings, and how will you continue to support these values if you were to become judge?
Okay, thank you for this question. One of the ways in which I have fostered diversity and inclusion in past professional settings, you can look at my track record of who I've hired, where I've advertised, all the affinity groups that I've reached out to, that continue to reach out in my capacity as a judge for interns, for when I have had the opportunity to hire a law clerk, and how I would bring that. How would I continue to support these values now, either in my position as a judge now or were I to be elected civil, is I believe in the philosophy of legal realism, where you can't divorce what actually happens with the law case. There are people behind every single case that appears before me, and ignoring their reality, what is going on for the small property owner or the vulnerable tenant can't just be a matter of looking up the case law and spitting out a computer-like decision. You have to take into account what everyone is going through, the context in which the case came before the court. So to that end, and plenty of my decisions have cited to, for instance, Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, which talks about these different philosophies of not divorcing the legal result, which what happens to real humans. So to that end, I continue to look at every case that comes before me in their individual context, and I believe that that furthers the philosophy behind diversity and inclusion in my courtroom. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Christine, over to you.
How have I fostered diversity and inclusion? Through internships, through mentorship. I think the process of there's so many times in Supreme Court where we're having motions and I'm hearing oral argument on behalf of my justice, which is a privilege. And me, the officer, and the clerk are the only people of color in a room of 70 attorneys. So, I mean, even just being there, being in the room is diverse, is inclusion, is, I mean, you know, when young female attorneys or attorneys who are different than the rest of the population show up and they see me in that position, it's a whole different thing. I never thought that that this was an opportunity that I could have to be a judge. I wasn't surrounded by people who look like me and so who are judges, you know? So diversity and inclusion is something that's super important to me. And as a justice, as a judge, I would be more than inclined to continue to be that person who shows up and who includes people and make sure that everyone is heard regardless of their background, of their faith, of whatever issue they're coming to, you know, neutrality, impartiality, to see the human being and the person that they are, and continue to mentor and bring other people who don't have access to justice, who don't have access to seeing people who aren't like them in these positions. Because court is scary, whether you're there for a speeding ticket or you're there to be arraigned. Court is scary. Sitting up there, you know, a lot of us don't have experiences like that. And it's a scary procedure and a scary place to be. And so I would just always make sure that I treat everyone with civility, humanity, and see the individual and create opportunities for others from disadvantaged backgrounds, be that economic or racial or ethnic or religious, to have opportunities to see people that they don't get to see in these positions, like I didn't.
Thank you so much. We will be moving on to now the next question, which is actually the second to last question. We will have Celeste, Felix, Brian Chelcun, and Danielle Eaddy-Alleyne. The question is, how do you intend to create a courtroom culture of accessibility, particularly when it comes to the LGBTQ and trans-specific community? Oh, sorry, we will start with Celeste, Felix, yes.
Thank you for that question. So it would be a courtroom for any other group of people that come into the courtroom. I believe in this statement that attitude follows leadership. And so I will respect whoever appears in my courtroom. I don't look at race. I don't look at religious beliefs, who you believe in, who you choose to love. You are obligated. You have a right to get treated fairly, just like everyone else in my courtroom. And I think with my staff, that also will follow. It doesn't make sense for a judge to show respect when you have a court officer who doesn't. Or doesn't respect how someone wants to be referred. So I have no issues being corrected, and whether it's they, them versus he, she.
Time.
Whatever they feel comfortable in my courtroom, that expect respect as a judge from litigants.
I am not sure if it's just my Zoom, but Celeste, your screen is freezing. I'm not sure if it's freezing for everyone else.
Yeah, it was freezing for myself as well.
Okay. Celeste, we will just pause you here for a second. There we go. All right. So sorry about that. Who's next? Brian, you're next, and then Danielle.
Yes, thank you. I'm a member of the queer community, and this is an important issue to me. I think the biggest thing is to not take anything for granted. I feel like being in Brooklyn, we can sometimes assume that things are better and that progress is being made. In my last 10 years, I have seen judges intentionally misgender both clients and attorneys. I've seen systemic racism, systemic sexism. I've seen colleagues who are Black men who are assumed to be defendants and not attorneys. So, you know, just creating an environment that doesn't take anything for granted, that doesn't assume that people are going to use the right words or say the right things, and have no tolerance for problematic behavior, but also create a space of learning and empathy and a place where everyone understands and set the tone as the judge. Everyone understands that this is how this person is going to be gendered. This is how this person is going to be addressed. This may seem like a little issue, but I hear this all the time. Judges butchering clients' names. Brooklyn is an incredibly diverse community with very complicated sometimes names. I think it's hugely important for a judge to learn how to say a litigant's name or an attorney's name, because that sets the tone for the courtroom and how a judge values the people that are in that courtroom as individuals, as professionals, as people who are there in very important moments of their lives and want to feel respected. So I think the judge sets the tone for that, and being open, listening, being receptive to feedback. I'm not perfect either, even if think I'm doing well in one area, not to get defensive if someone says, you know, Your Honor, you used the wrong word, or you used the wrong pronoun, or we have some people told us that they're feeling this way, and be receptive to that feedback.
Thank you so much, Danielle.
Yes, this is a very important issue that actually comes up a lot in the criminal area, where people are misgendered, particularly because they are put in cells of the gender that they are not. And it's very important first to have discussions with the attorneys to identify how either the defendant or a witness wants to be identified. It's a very big deal, and it's a big deal if a judge gets it wrong, particularly in front of others, in front of juries. It can be very embarrassing. It can change the tone of testimony. You can see a defendant slump down because an identity is so central to who they are. And that is something that we should get right. As was said, no one's perfect, but we should try to have those discussions in advance. And with respect to the litigants, because sometimes where attorneys can be mistreated, I've seen that also. I think that a judge, you only control what's in front of you, that if you see anyone being mistreated or treated differently, you have an obligation to step in. So fairness is across the board for everyone. It could be the court officer, you know, it can be people laughing at a court officer because they're queer, you know, or anything. So it starts with the judge and the tone that they set. And we all can learn new things. If you don't know, you should ask before you embarrass someone. So that's the tone on that level that I would set, and just fairness in the treatment of dispositions in any matter that comes before me.
Thank you so much. And now we have made it to our final question, everybody. So right before 8:10, thank you so much, everyone, for your thoughtful and concise answers. Next for this question, we have Linda Locascio, Janice Purvis, and Quincy Auger. What changes or initiatives do you think can be made to ensure equitable access to justice and level the playing field for litigants, given the disproportionate burden faced by racially and economically marginalized people, particularly Black communities and young Black men, who frequently find themselves in a defensive or vulnerable position within the civil legal system? It's a long question, so I put it in the chat. So we will start with Linda.
So I touched upon this before. One of my missions and passions is to join the Judicial Mental Task Force. And the reason for that is because I had vast experience in the mental hygiene part during the pandemic and noticed many parents coming to court to have help for their children who were self-medicating or not medicating at all, and had diagnosed or undiagnosed mental illness. And they just kept going through a revolving door into the hospital, 72-hour observation, released, and then again in turn and over until the only time real help was made was when there was an arrest, a police involvement, and definitely disproportionately affects marginalized people. In addition, we're observed in the consumer debt part and also in family court. There's a ripple effect to all of this, right? So when people come to civil court and they can't pay their credit card because they're not well, because they can't get a job and they don't have the resources to help them, they are now faced with tons of credit card debt because they were sick or ill and they can't do anything about it. So we lack those resources to serve the community in civil court for sure. With respect to family court, I saw it myself when I was a young attorney, and this is when I first made my mission to help with the mental health task force. When I was a young attorney, I saw parents' rights terminated because we didn't have the resources back then, and we are talking over 20 years ago, to assist this parent to get better. And unfortunately, the parent was unable to appreciate their own mental illness. And so I now identified that across the board in all the courts, it affects us, that we don't have the resources in every court. And I think by bringing that in and being on the task force and fighting for that, we'll be able to help everyone in a bigger way.
And that's time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving on to Janice.
Yes. So, I mean, I would definitely advocate for more resources in the help center and more, legal programs within the court system to help litigants. I know just as an example, in the foreclosure part, there was difficulty, due to COVID. There used to be a foreclosure assistance program. I think that should be back up and running in the courthouse. I also think those services deal with the allocation of the budget and with Albany. But from my perspective of what I could specifically do is maintain a courtroom that is based on and founded on courtesy and respect. I think it's very important when I conference cases in the pretrial discovery parts, and I am dealing with a pro se litigant who is confused and doesn't know what's going on. Before I even start the conference, I ask if they've looked for an attorney, if they're interested in looking for an attorney, if they've been to the help center, because it's an invaluable resource. And so I make sure to slow things down and let them know that there are, albeit limited, but there are resources available to them within the help center. But in terms of my courtroom, I would base that on making sure every litigant that comes in front of me understands what's going on, what they're here for, and that they've been heard and they've been listened to.
Thank you so much. And our final candidate, Quincy.
I agree that I think one of the big things that can be done is access to resources. I know Ms. Ortiz mentioned this earlier as well, but there needs to be really strong access to forms on websites and information on how to do these things that lawyers know how to do, that people who are in this world more often know how to do, not just in the legalese, but in the language that people understand. And I do mean that in terms of plain language, colloquial language, but also in people's native languages. That is a huge way that access can be increased and knowledge can be increased. Access to representation, like Ms. Purvis said, that people understand where they can find assistance, where there may be assistance for them. There's not enough for people who cannot afford these resources. And for a judge and their court staff, I think it is important that they don't give more credit to the larger party, whether that be the big corporation, the person who has more money, the government, the district attorney's office, that they are not affording more credibility to that side of things, but are rather looking to make sure that the parties are all being heard, that they're all having an opportunity, that people who are coming into the courts understand what their rights are, why they are there, what the steps are, having patience, leading with empathy, and leading with an understanding that often issues are not singular. They are coming at all sides at all times. This is often, a court is an incredibly stressful and often horrible experience for many
And that's
people.
time.
And that needs to be empathized with in the court.
Thank you so much. And again, just to the public, we do see a lot of questions being typed in the Q&A, the Zoom Q&A. But like I stated before, we did have a lot of submissions to the registration questions that were sent in a few days ago. So we did have to go through all the questions and pick whatever we had time for in this 2-hour Zoom. If you do have a question, please make sure to send it ahead of time to make sure that it gets into this pile if possible, or you can email us. But again, thank you so much. And I'm going to send it over to Vlad to close us out.
Thank you for that, Jackie. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight, especially on a snowy evening. We're truly grateful to everyone who took the time to be here and stay engaged. A sincere thank you to all the judicial candidates for participating, sharing your experience with the community. Your willingness to be a part of this forum helps make an often opaque process more transparent and accessible. So I appreciate you. Thank you as well to our elected officials, club leaders, community members, and especially the Brooklyn Democratic Party's Judicial Ad Hoc Committee for organizing this forum and making tonight possible. Big props to you guys. Please stay safe, stay warm, and thank you all for being part of our democracy. Have a wonderful night.